Welcome to Beekeeping Today podcast presented by Bee Culture. Beekeeping Today podcast is your source for beekeeping news, information, and entertainment. I'm Jeff Ott.
And I'm Kim Flatham.
Hey, Jeff and Kim. Today's sponsor is Global Patties. They're a family-operated business that manufactures protein supplement patties for honeybees. It's a good time to think about honeybee nutrition. Feeding your hives protein supplement patties will ensure that they produce strong and healthy colonies by increasing brood production and overall honey flow. Now is a great time to consider what type of patty is right for your area and your honeybees. Global offers a variety of standard patties as well as custom patties to meet your needs. No matter where you are, Global is ready to serve you out of their manufacturing plants in Airdrie, Alberta, and in Butte, Montana, or from distribution depots across the continent. Visit them today at www.globalpatties.com.
Hey, thanks, Sherry. You know, each week we get to talk about how much we appreciate our sponsor support. They help make all of this happen and provide us the ability to bring you each episode. With that, thanks to Bee Culture Magazine for continuing their presenting sponsorship of this podcast. Bee Culture has been the magazine for American beekeeping since 1873. Subscribe to Bee Culture today. We also want to thank 2 Million Blossoms as sponsor of this episode. 2 Million Blossoms is a quarterly magazine dedicated to protecting all pollinators. Learn more on our Season 2, Episode 9 podcast with editor Kirsten Trainer and from visiting www.2millionblossoms.com, and that is with a number 2. Also, check out the new 2 Million Blossoms podcast, also available from the website or from wherever you download and stream your shows. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. We are so happy you're here. Hey, Kim, boy, this summer is just zipping along.
Oh, speak for yourself, guy. I'm growing weary of hot and wet, but
oh no,
that's what can you do, you know?
Well, how are the bees handling it? The heck with you. How are your bees?
Well, you know, interestingly enough that you should ask that, Jim too and I both struggle to get out to our bees because either you're gone or it's raining or it's 120 in the shade. So, but this last week we both were able to get out and look at our bees, and the packages are doing what I expect the packages are doing. The nuke that I got is a buster. It's doing really well. I'm really pleased with it. I think I'm probably going to have to use the honey from the buster to feed the 2 packages over winter, but so it'll be a honeyless winter, but at least I should have bees.
Well, good. No one ever said keeping bees was like keeping kittens, you know? It takes some work. It's a constant challenge.
Well, it's something to do, you know. So who's on today?
Well, coming up in today's episode, we have Molly Martin from the Xerces Society, and she heads up the Bee City USA program.
Molly, yeah, with Xerces Society. You know, I met the lady who founded, you know, she's running the section on Xerces Society called Bee City. That's where you can have your city or your campus, bee campus, become, you know, recognized as supporting pollinators and doing good things for them and for the environment. I met the lady who started this program several years ago. Her name was Phyllis Stiles, and she was at a Mother Earth News show in North Carolina when I met her. And I think that was one of the first cities that she was able to capture. So it'll be fun to see where they've gone since then.
Yeah, we had Xerces Society on, I think, episode 3, on the podcast. It's going to be fun to have them back and talk specifically about Bee City. I think they're doing a lot of good work. Speaking of good work, coming up in Medina is the Ohio Bee Conference, the Being Diverse, Inspiring Leaders in Beekeeping, October 1, 2, and 3. What do you know about that, Kim?
Well, I know that I'm looking forward to it. I'm not part of it, other than I get to chauffeur the speakers to and from the airport. But I get to listen to all the talks in between. I think there's 15 speakers. There's going to be a bunch of vendors. They've got some sponsors coming up. It should be a pretty dynamite program. Jerry's done a good job of gathering the right people to talk about this interesting topic.
Well, I'm not speaking, so does that mean that you're not going to pick me up either?
Sure I will. Just like Uber, you know, it won't cost you too much.
Uber. That sounds really good. And I know that I was looking at the speaker list, and we've had quite a few of the speakers on the podcast. So if our listeners want to get a preview of what they may hear, they had Tammy Potter, Tammy Horn Potter. She's been on the show here twice. She's speaking, and Sue Colby has been on the show, and she will be on the program as well. So that's several of the people who are going to be on the Being Diverse program that weekend.
Yeah. It should be good.
Yeah, speaking of doing good, you and Jim are doing a really good job with Honeybee Obscura. You just mentioned a little bit ago about the latest episode, and you're comparing and contrasting your bees that you started this last spring. What else do you have coming up?
We've got one coming up on ugly bees, and you know what they can be. You got a colony that all summer long has been just fine, and you go out there one day and you take the cover off, and suddenly they're eating your veil, coming after you. So what causes it? What do you do about it? We look at some of that, and then we've got one on winter packing, and my concept of winter packing. I learned to keep bees in Wisconsin, where winter was with a big capital W, and we spent a lot of time and effort perfecting that technique there, and then it kind of got dropped. People, bees were so plentiful and easy to get that wintering wasn't much of a problem. But now that it's like 40%, or something, when you got to replace those. I know the people that are wintering indoors have really gotten a hold of that. But for those of us who are still outdoors, is wrapping necessary? And if it is, how do you do it? And what are the things you need to look at? And that's what we're talking about coming down the road here.
Well, that's really good. This is not too early to start thinking about how you're going to prepare your bees for the winter. So winter packing, that's a good one coming up.
There's definitely a right way and a wrong way to pack. And when you're thinking of overwintering, think of bees in a tree. What do they have? What kind of ventilation? What kind of, what's the R factor in the walls? Those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And the way we learned to pack didn't consider any of that.
Yeah.
So rethinking it.
Yeah. Well, everybody, that's Honeybee Obscura, www.honeybeeobscura.com, available wherever you download and stream your shows. And we also have transcripts available for Honeybee Obscura. So if you enjoy reading along as you listen to the show, or if you find it more useful to listen to read your transcripts, feel free to get out there to the website, download them, and make use of them.
And if you're finding it useful, let us know.
Well, coming up, we have Molly Martin from Bee City, USA. But first, a quick word from our friends at Strong Microbials. Make sure to visit our sponsor page for a special Strong Microbials discount code for Beekeeping Today podcast listeners.
Hello, beekeepers. Your honeybees face a lot of challenges out there. Unbalanced food sources from monoculture crops, holding yards, drought, food shortages, antibiotics, pesticides, and pathogens like chalk brood. To overcome these challenges, your bees need the multiple bacteria that are in all nectars, pollens, and the environment. These bacteria aid honeybees' digestion and improve your honeybees' response and resilience to pesticides. Now you can help improve your honey colony health with a quick, easy, and safe-to-use product. Strong Microbials Super DFM Honeybee uses naturally occurring bacteria to restore the healthy gut biome of your honeybees. Check them out today at www.strongmicrobials.com.
And while you're at the Strong Microbial site, make sure you click on and subscribe to their regular newsletter, The Hive. It's a regular newsletter full of product information and updates. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Sitting across the virtual Zoom table right now is Molly Martin of the Xerces Society. Molly, welcome to Beekeeping Today podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to meet you too.
Also, nice to meet you too, Molly. We haven't had the opportunity to do this yet, and today Jeff tells me that we're going to talk about Bee City and bee campuses, and that's what you're the coordinator of for Xerces, those two programs?
Yes, that's correct. So I run two initiatives of the Xerces Society called Bee City USA and Bee Campus USA.
Okay. Well, let's just get started. But why would I want to be a bee city?
That is a great question. Hopefully everybody wants to be a bee city, whether or not they know that yet. The main reason is that, as I'm sure all the listeners know, pollinators are in decline globally, and they really need our help supporting them. And a big piece of that is supporting pollinators in our urban and suburban areas, that in these built environments, we've kind of created just like a sea of concrete with often not many native plants to support pollinators and other wildlife. So we really need to be supporting bees because they support so many plants that we rely on and are really a keystone species in our ecosystems. And so by becoming a bee city or a bee campus, you make commitments to protect pollinators. And then in return, you get support from us. So it's essentially a framework that we help support these groups that want to do good things for pollinators and maybe don't know where to start or need a little support in that work.
One of the things I want to emphasize here, Molly, is that Bee City is not just honeybees. It's all pollinators, and many pollinators are bees, but honeybees are just one of them. So I want to make sure people understand that this is a much broader canvas than just keeping honeybees in your backyard, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's about the diversity of all of our pollinators, both bees, that there are over 3,000, I think it's about 3,600 species in the US and Canada alone. So we're trying to support all those species and then also all the other pollinators out there. So our name is Bee City, but we really want to be supporting the butterflies, the moths, the beetles, all the other insects and non-insect species like hummingbirds that are contributing to pollination.
Okay. Well, if I wanted to be a bee city, what do I have to do?
That is a great question. So where to begin? First, you need to decide that you care about pollinators, which I assume most people listening to this already feel like pollinators are important and that they ought to be doing something to support them. So once you decide that, the next step is to look around your community, whether that's a city or town or our campus program, which is college and university campuses, and to look for allies. So other people who are also interested in conserving pollinators and might be helpful for a committee. So the first step is really convening this committee of people who are from various backgrounds, bring different skill sets to the committee. And then from there, you can start your application and begin planning out how you're going to meet the different commitments of the program.
This application is on your webpage?
It is, yes. So we have an online application. And for cities, the main pieces of that are letting us know you have a committee convened. You pass a resolution. So the city council needs to pass a resolution saying our city is committed to pollinators. We will put measures to protect pollinators into our city plans. And then you fill out this, the online application, and we take a look at it and say, yes, you've made the correct commitments, you've passed a resolution, you can become an affiliate. And then the commitments are what happens in the next year or two before the first renewal is due to us. So that's kind of a misconception often with the program is, do I need to complete the commitments before applying? And the answer is that we then give you, about a year after you become affiliated to complete those commitments.
You're going to be dealing with the city's or the campus's forestry department, their lawn maintenance department, their street repair. All of these people are going to have to be a part of this, right? They all have to be going in the same direction.
Yeah. So we require someone from the grounds or landscaping department to be part of the committee for campuses because we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and there's agreement about what they're doing rather than having a small group decide that they're going to take these steps and then have that trickle down to the people actually doing the maintenance of campus grounds. Yeah, so that's really the reason to have a committee that has people from a broad swath of the community. We want this to be an effort that a lot of people are involved with.
So they apply and they get a council resolution in place. Then they have, you said, up to a year or so to meet certain commitments. Do they have a plan then? If they don't get to commitment number 3, in the first year, but they're working towards it in year 2, they can still continue working that to become a bee city or maintain their certification.
Yeah, so that's correct. One example, so one of our commitments is to reduce pesticide use, and we require that affiliates create a integrated pest management plan. So essentially a plan of what are alternatives to pesticides, how can we address our pest issues in a way that doesn't harm the environment, people, pollinators as much. And it may still involve some pesticide use, but we want places to be thoughtful about that use and thinking through alternatives. So one example is that affiliates create that plan, but that's really a long-term effort. We don't expect affiliates to jump in and a month later have this plan developed and in place. So that's something that can be worked on for years. And often it's an ongoing process that's updated annually or every few years to make sure it fits with their priorities and their budget and what they're doing.
Well, it sounds like a city or a campus is, if not already, going to have to seriously be thinking about a good IPM program for all of the environments that are in the city, on the campus, and get everybody, like I said, going in the same direction at the same time. So if I've got people that really want to do this but don't have a whole lot of experience developing some parts of these programs, can I turn to you and have you show me examples or point me in the direction of people to talk to that have already accomplished this?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the main benefits of becoming part of this program is that we provide support and resources to affiliates. So we have fact sheets, webinars, we'll have trainings, we have opportunities for one-on-one support. And that's one of the great things. So going back a little, Bee City and Bee Campus were founded as a separate nonprofit from Xerces. They were kind of their own nonprofit started in North Carolina. And then they became part of Xerces in 2018, which I think was a huge benefit because Xerces has a lot of expertise on pollinators, pesticides, native plants across the entire country. So we suddenly gained this wealth of knowledge that then we can connect our affiliates to. So often if they have a question about a plant, I'm based in Portland and I may know nothing about their question, but I can then connect them with the right staff member who can answer that.
I want to just remind folks also that Bee City being now a part of Xerces Society, we did have Matthew Shepard from Xerces Society way early on in our podcasting history, episode 3, back in 2018. And I do recall him saying that the Bee City had just joined part of Xerces at that time.
Yeah, I think it had joined just months before. It was one of the first times that they were publicly talking about it, which is pretty exciting.
So if anybody wants to learn more about the Xerces Society and the other projects and other projects at Xerces, go ahead and listen to episode 3. It's chock full of information.
Better Bee is pleased to sponsor today's episode of Beekeeping Today podcast. For over 40 years, Better Bee has supplied beekeepers across the country with the tools, equipment, and knowledge needed to succeed. Because many Better Bee employees are beekeepers themselves, they understand your needs and challenges and are better prepared to answer your beekeeping questions. From their colorful catalog to their support of beekeeper educational activities, including this podcast, Better Bee truly lives up to their tagline of beekeepers serving beekeepers. See for yourself at betterbee.com.
Molly, how many bee cities are there? How many bee campuses are there?
That's a great question. I believe we're currently at 266 total affiliates, and it's pretty evenly split. We have a few more cities than campuses. The city program started in 2012, and the campus program was 2015. So the city program got a little more momentum going early. And then we have affiliates in 44 states. So we're trying to get up to all 50 states, but we're missing a few. So hopefully some of our listeners, I can tell you which states even. And if we have listeners in those states, you get extra gold stars if you become an affiliate. So they're Alaska, which has an amazing number of bees, especially bumblebees. Hawaii, which I've been joking I really wouldn't mind going and doing a little advertising in Hawaii.
I
We have, yes, Arizona, which is also a huge hotspot for native bee diversity. And then Oklahoma, Kansas, and Rhode Island.
And are you in any other countries?
We're not. We're just in the U.S. at this point. There's a similar program in Canada called Bee City Canada, and they have a campus program as well. And they started a little after Bee City USA, and the founder of Bee City, Phyllis Stiles, helped the founder of Bee Canada start that program. So there's a lot of overlap, but they are separate programs.
You know, over the years, I've driven through a few bee cities, and every one of them that I've been in, somewhere in the city had a great big sign that says Bee City. Where do I get one of those?
So once you become an affiliate, we provide you with the artwork files to create those signs. So there's a street sign that you can download, and then we recommend contacting a local print shop to get those made. And then we also make a custom affiliate logo. So it looks like the national one, but it will have your city name and state. And that can be used however affiliates want. So often they use them for fundraising, or if they make booklets or things, they can use that affiliate, that logo, whereas ours is a little more restricted and is just used for the street sign.
So I could have it on the city's webpage. And
yes.
If people wanted to find out about it, click here and find out all about well, Jeff, you're a bee city out in Olympia there. Have you seen that logo on your webpage?
You know, I haven't been to the City of Olympia website. That's a good question.
You're a brand new affiliate. It's only about a month ago.
All right, good. Well, now I don't feel like such a doofus for not knowing it for sure that they have it. That is interesting.
No, it's hot off the press.
Hot off the press. Well, I want to offer any of our listeners who live in Alaska, Hawaii, Arizona, Oklahoma, Kansas, or Rhode Island. Those are the 5 states. Is that right? 6 states that do not have a Bee City program. If you're a listener and you get your city listed as an affiliate, I'll make sure you get a Beekeeping Today podcast mug or T-shirt, whichever you want. But you have to work with Molly and get your city, be the first city listed in that state. And there you go. There's a challenge.
Good idea.
That's a great incentive.
Yeah, there's a challenge for you.
I like that.
You mentioned the fact that you're in Portland, and so you know the Portland area, the Oregon area. If I took a quick look, I don't know, we've got almost a dozen bee cities and campuses here in Ohio. But if another one of those cities decided to join up, the committee came to you and said, well, we want to do some native plantings. We've got some space we want to do. It's part of our commitment. We're going to increase native plants and decrease some of the grass that we've got, some of those things. What do you know about Ohio plants?
I personally know essentially nothing about Ohio plants, but fortunately, there are other Xerces staff who know quite a bit. So I would connect them with the expert in that region rather than, I could pretend to know something, but I think people would much prefer if I connect them to the actual expert. But we do have people who are happy to share plant lists. Xerces Society has plant lists for each region of the country of native plants. So I can connect people with resources and with people who can come and help them and answer.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Well, I was told long ago that it's not important to know everything. What's more important is to know where to find the information. So you're doing okay.
Yeah, and with affiliates in all states, it's pretty hard to know everything in all those states, but we have the resources and the people. So
that's
my
really
job
good.
is just connecting people.
So do you guys do some what would you call it, ongoing education as knowledge increases, as things evolve in terms of, I mean, we were talking here recently to Dewey Karen, who's with the Honeybee Health Coalition, and they are seriously looking at the differences and the changes that are going to happen because of climate change. And I'm going to guess that you're going to have the same issues with all pollinators. Are you looking at some of those things to keep people up to speed?
Yeah, we're really encouraging when people are planting to really think about being very local with the plants they're choosing. So making sure they're selecting plants that are adapted to that region. So for example, if you're in, one of our affiliates is Santa Fe, New Mexico, they could go pick a plant that is theoretically native, but it's really a type of that native that's not native to that region. So it's not drought tolerant, or it doesn't have the attributes that really makes it grow well in that specific ecoregion. So we're encouraging people to pick the plants that really are going to work in their area and make those drought tolerant, make the decisions of plants that are going to work well when there's climate change. And you're not picking plants that are already kind of mismatched, and you're going to have issues when you have the climate changing.
Do the Xerces Society has these regional plant lists, and I've looked at them often. Are they reflecting these changes, these plant lists, do you know?
That's a good question. We often look at them and update them. I'm not directly involved in creating those plant lists, so I'm sure it's something that we're thinking about and we'll continue to update in the future.
So do you guys have ongoing education, webinars, some kinds of events? Once I become a bee city, I was going to say tree city. Once I become a bee city, you're going to keep me up to speed, and you're not only going to do it just by working with my committee, but offering things for the whole community that's a bee city. Am I right?
Yeah. So we have webinars, generally monthly webinars on interesting topics that affiliates are welcome to join. We have frequent trainings that people can join if they, for example, like if you want to work on your integrated pest management plan, we will have a training where you can come and talk to an expert about that and get ideas. We also have a monthly e-newsletter where we share kind of updates from affiliates. We try to make it fun. We also have social media accounts and frequently share any articles we come across or affiliate stories or that kind of thing. And then we also, it's kind of two-tiered. So we provide these outreach and education to our affiliates. And then one of their commitments is also to do outreach and education in their communities. So we also provide resources for them to do outreach and education. So for example, template presentations. We have presentations about pollinators that someone could take and make their own adjustments and then use that to do an event or something.
So these are these only just for the committee people, and then they have to go out into the community? Or can Jeff living in Olympia tune in and listen to what you're doing with his committee?
Anyone's welcome to join trainings and webinars and sign up for the e-newsletter. So those are not restricted to the committee. There are some trainings that we do restrict just to keep them small so that there is more interaction. But most of the webinars and resources are available publicly. And also a lot of affiliates often put them on their own website. So they can take them from us, put them on their website, and then community members can come take a look at that and learn directly from the committee.
Is there a backlog of these? You save them so I could go look at the last one and the one before and the one before and the one before?
We do. So blogs are on our website and we have those all posted. We also have, Xerces has a YouTube channel and we save all the recorded webinars and trainings on there. And there's a Bee City playlist. So if people go on there, they can find the Bee City playlist. And then also we have a Bee City website, which is just at beecityusa.org. And on there, we have a webinar and video library. So that's kind of a curated list of recorded webinars and videos about the program.
Well, there you go, Jeff. You got the whole history of what's going on and what's going to be going on in Olympia.
I was just getting ready to go check out this information on the Bee City website. It's a great resource, and I'm going to start looking for that sign.
And with the website, we have an affiliate portal. So once a place becomes certified, they get access to this portal that has a whole bunch of more resources than the main website. So that's a good thing to know.
Wow. Well, one of the things on your website that really attracted my attention, I'm basically a very lazy person. You have a no mow May, which is I like that a lot. Not having to mow, it makes a lot of sense to me. We usually have to start mowing. Well, I use tax day, April 15th is usually the first time we have to mow, but I'm going to stretch no mow May until no mow all the way through May. But how does that work? What are you featuring there?
Yeah, so this is the first year that we have advertised No Mow May. It was started by Plant Life, which is a nonprofit based in the UK. And they encouraged people not to mow and then collected data on plants and pollinators to see kind of what happens if you don't mow. And they found that you do end up with a whole lot more pollinator abundance and diversity. So then we actually learned about it not from Plant Life, but from two of our affiliates. So Appleton, Wisconsin, and Lawrence University did some research on No Mow May. They started their own initiative in Appleton to get people not to mow. And then Lawrence University, a professor named Israel Del Toro was kind of leading this research on what's the impact of not mowing in Appleton. And they found, I forget the numbers, but it was staggering. It was like 3 times more bee abundance and 5 times diversity or something. Don't quote me on that. But it's on the paper's linked from our website if you want to know the exact numbers. But it was a huge increase. And we were really impressed by No Mow May and this great collaboration between a Bee City and a Bee Campus affiliate. So we kind of took that and advertised it to try to get more places to do No Mow May, which is essentially what the name suggests. It's not mowing for the month of May to allow more flowers to grow in lawns to help pollinators.
I like that. Less work and more pollinators.
Exactly. It's kind of a win-win. And I will point out, No Mow May can be a misleading term because given the U.S. is a giant region, May is not necessarily the right time to not mow in every state. So it's named No Mow May because it's a great name and it's kind of catchy and it's nice to have a name like that. But a lot of regions, it's not necessarily like exactly the month of May that you shouldn't be mowing.
Yeah, it could be January.
It should just be no mow.
Yeah, just never mow.
The only issue I see with that is my neighbors.
Yes, there is a lot of pushback about not mowing, given the U.S.'s kind of obsession with this green lawn that's perfect and has no weeds in it and is perfectly mowed. And so a lot of cities have gotten around that by, if they have a weed ordinance, so some sort of city ordinance that says you need to keep your lawn at a certain length, they've convinced the city to suspend that for 1 month and let people have their lawns grow to help pollinators. And another piece of that we found is that signage is incredibly important. So if you just have a lawn and let it go and it's full of weeds and the pollinators are happy and your neighbors walk by, they might be like, what are you doing? You've gotten lazy, I guess. You're not mowing your lawn. But then if you put up a sign, it's completely different because then they can learn, oh, they're actually doing this for a reason. And it's not permanent.
Yeah, I would think there's a lot of places where homeowners associations that would be problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. We acknowledge that this is not doable in all places.
Well, what have we missed, Molly?
That's a good question. We haven't really talked about what exactly all of the program commitments are, which might be a good thing for people to learn. And so they essentially fit into 3 clumps, which people might guess. One is improving habitat, so planting native plants. And with that, also leaving spaces for bees to nest. So a lot of native bees just nest in the ground and need bare ground to build their nests. So making sure you're leaving those spaces or hollow stems for stem nesting bees. The second one is reducing pesticide use, which is a huge issue harming bees and other wildlife. So encouraging integrated pest management. And then the third one is just outreach and education. So getting the word out to other people in the community about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and also how they can contribute. And the way those commitments shake out is a little different for cities and campuses, and people can go to our website and read the specific requirements. But for cities, it's a little more like have events for your outreach. For campuses, they need to include pollinator conservation in courses and also have service learning. So it's a little tailored to each community and what might work best for them.
I know this would be a difficult question probably to answer, but do you have, for those communities considering becoming a Bee City USA affiliate, a budgeting number? What is it going to cost us? What do we have to take forward to the council as a cost for becoming a Bee City USA year one and each year afterwards? You have any guidelines?
I don't have a great estimate. It's so different.
Yeah.
I would say the one rule with Bee City and Bee Campus is that there really are no rules or no like consistency. I mean, there are commitments you make, but there's not much consistency about how people do that. And I think that's wonderful because communities can decide what really works for them. It's not us pushing a specific number or a specific way of doing something on that community. So a lot of them are able to do this work for essentially no money. They can find people who are already planting plants, and then instead of using these non-native ornamentals, use natives instead. Or maybe they already have a festival for sustainability or something and add a booth about bees and other pollinators. So there are ways to do it really inexpensively. That being said, if you can have a larger budget, there's a whole lot more you can get done. And then on our end, we do have application and renewal fees just to make sure that I can get paid and we can keep the program going, provide the resources to affiliates. And that's on a sliding scale from $100 to $500, depending on the population or city or student enrollment.
Okay. And that sounds like that would be fairly manageable in terms of the application fee. I would think that also for a community wanting to get involved, it also makes it really flexible and pulling in the local schools, social organizations, community programs, Rotary, Lions, the other clubs that are around to be involved in some aspect of that ongoing program.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the most successful communities are the ones that can pull together people already doing work. They're not starting from scratch. They're saying, who's already excited about this? Who's already doing work related to this? And then pull that together. Yeah. And just continue building on it.
Perfect.
It makes perfect sense. Well, Jeff, you're already there. I guess maybe we should start here in Medina looking at doing this.
Yeah, you'd think Medina, home of AI Root, would be a bee city.
You would think.
Doesn't the water tower say Bee City on it? It did at one time. I think it did at one time. Yeah. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever looked at the water tower now that you mention it. But,
well, Kim, your alma mater is a bee campus, University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Yep. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
And Madison's working on their application as well.
Here's one weird question, and I live in a town that if a person lives in a town that is somewhat reluctant to have beekeepers in town, and they have an ordinance, I mean, does that automatically exclude us from becoming a bee city?
It does not. We get that question often, but since our focus is so much on native pollinators, we don't have any requirement for a honeybee ordinance. The town's welcome to have one and be involved in beekeeping, but it's not a requirement. They can also fulfill the commitments by just focusing on the native species.
We're glad you don't discriminate.
Yes, no, we're about protecting all pollinators, and fortunately, the steps are the same for natives and non-natives.
Jeff, anything else?
No, Molly, it's been a great time having you on the show and on the podcast and talking about the Bee City USA program. We'll have the links that we talked about to your website, beecityusa.org, and also the Xerces, the larger Xerces Society website. Thank you for joining us on Beekeeping Today podcast.
So much for having me, and to the listeners, thank you so much for listening.
Well, I learned a lot, Molly. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to go back to your webpage again and start looking for even more stuff to do. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I thought I'd take this opportunity since I live here in Olympia, and as Molly and Kim pointed out, Olympia just became a Bee City USA certified. I'd search out and find the person involved and in charge of becoming and certified in City of Olympia as Bee City USA. So I am literally sitting in the middle of the park here at Priest Point Park in the City of Olympia in the sunshine at a picnic table, sitting across the table from Amy. Amy, welcome to Beekeeping Today podcast, and please introduce yourself and tell us who you are and your role.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. My name's Amy Stull, and I'm the Park Stewardship Supervisor for Olympia Parks Arts and Recreation. And what that means is I supervise our 3 park rangers and the folks that help plan our habitat restoration and use volunteer work parties to do that.
Oh, very cool. So you are the contact person for heading up the Bee City USA certification.
I'm the person who got it going and am tracking and following it, but it's a team effort as part of a habitat working group that we have. We partner with environmental services in our public works, and we do a lot of habitat planning with them. And this is something, the committee requirement of Bee City USA is actually our habitat working group.
Oh, very cool. So how did you hear of Bee City USA?
I think one of our planners brought it to my attention, and it was something about 2 years ago, and I did some research on the Xerces website, as well as a couple of cities, one in Oregon, that had actually gotten Bee City USA certification to see what it was all about.
What are the benefits of becoming a Bee City? City of Olympia had to approve this, so what did you describe to them as the benefits of becoming a Bee City USA certified?
I think we've seen definitely an increased interest in pollinator preservation and people interested in the disappearance of pollinators and what citizens or the community can do about that. And this was something that is very similar to our Tree City USA certification, actually, with Arbor Day Foundation. So the benefits are that we have acknowledged the plight of pollinators, and that we have a role to play in that, and that we can also get the community involved in things that preserve pollinators and their habitats. And really, it's part of our philosophy in the stewardship department. And also, as you and I were talking, it kind of, once you see it, it's everywhere. Yeah. And it blends into a lot of the other projects. For example, we're going to do some planting of pollinator habitat, which will allow us to reduce our mowing. Oh, yeah. Which is a big deal. Yeah.
And around town, the medians, they're replacing the medians. And so why not do something for pollinators in those median strips or the tree lawns areas, as opposed to just planting gravel or doing something that requires more maintenance or there's little benefit?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to look at that kind of thing. We won't be able to take every opportunity, but definitely are working our way into that.
Very cool. And how long has the city been working towards a certification?
It was, I'm going to say, spring of 2019 when it first came to my attention. And that's how long, of course, last year delayed everything. So we'd think that I'd have more time to work on it, but I didn't. And so we just got actual certification at the beginning of this year. And then in the next 2 years, we have time to meet all of the qualifications that Molly probably told you about.
Yeah, Molly was very complimentary of the work that you're doing, so it's very exciting.
Well, thank you.
So I said, I got to get down there and talk to Amy. So what are some of any key projects you would like to highlight?
Sure. So there's a couple things we've been doing. Like I mentioned, we work with volunteers a lot. And one of our volunteers was so excited that he dug out the bottom of a kettle that we have at one of our parks, kind of a gravel spoils area. And he planted an entire native pollinator garden from seed.
Oh, wow.
So we're kind of waiting to see how things go with the way that the weather has been. But that's how excited he was. So that's one of our projects. I mentioned we have a couple of things where we're looking at planting so that we will reduce mowing. And we also just recently applied for a grant for sensory gardens. So
what are sensory gardens?
Sensory gardens are places where people, especially people experiencing some sort of disability, can go and have access to sights, sounds, smells, of, touch and taste.
Yeah.
So all of the senses. And we kind of, as part of that, included pollinator habitat.
Wonderful.
So either way, even if we don't get the grant, we're going to work on those. And that'll give chance for equitable opportunities for people to view pollinators, especially native pollinators.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that sounds great. And so you're working with community groups, or how are you finding the groups to work with?
For that group, it's really an equity and inclusion project. So for those groups, we'll be working with some advocacy groups for parents of children with disabilities and a couple other partners that we have in the community.
That's great.
We haven't really, we've done a little bit of work with the Garden Club, Olympia Garden Club, and then also I just spoke with Olympia Lions Club about their pollinator, about Bee City USA and what it means.
Yeah, very good. The community involvement would be a big plus, I'm sure.
Yes, and I think I feel in the future it'll be something that I pursue more. We're still all recovering a little bit. So, for example, for Pollinator Week this year, I just tweeted out some facts, kind of a soft opening to our Bee City USA certification. But it was something, and we as we plan our habitat projects, our volunteers are involved in those, so they'll have some information for sure.
Very cool. Yeah, it's good. Pollinator Week's really big for Beekeeping Today podcast because we started the podcast Pollinator Week in 2018.
Oh,
so
great.
Every year we celebrate. That's our anniversary week, so to speak. As I'm wearing the T-shirt now, one of the cool things about Bee City USA is the sign. So and we'll get a picture of you holding a sign here for the city of Olympia. But where does the city foresee posting these signs?
So it's a street sign. I'm going to hopefully have it at one of the entrances to the city, but honestly, it's so beautiful. I want one for our building as well, so I'm going to have to contact Molly and see. And the pollinator garden signs they gave us are also beautiful.
They are.
So they're, So street sign, that's the requirement.
Right.
And then maybe another one for our building.
So will they be just one, or are you going to put them in several key
I'll start with
locations?
one. Mm-hmm. If you've ever, there's a little bit of sign overload as you come into the city, so I want it to be impactful.
Will you have the opportunity to get the logo placed on some of the Parks and Recreation websites, or is there that opportunity?
Possibly. So one of the things that is a requirement of Bee City USA is having an online piece. So I'm still working on that and what that might look like for us. We have a couple of platforms for citizen or for community engagement, and I haven't quite figured that. I have 2 years. Or a year and a half still.
Yeah.
So I haven't, that's one thing that I haven't done, along with some of the other policy review. And we have our parks, though, one of the requirements is an IPM, so integrated pest management. And our parks are pesticide free. The only time that we have pesticides are when we have noxious weeds that have to be legally controlled, and another trained team comes in and does that. So my coworker, Sam Baker, is the one that led that initiative. So luckily, that's already something that's in place for us.
Oh, good. I hope you get rid of some of the Scotch broom that's everywhere.
That's what our volunteers do. So we don't have to use pesticides because they do that. But, there are some pollinator species that like it,
The honeybees,
especially birds.
The honeybees like the pollen from it too, but it's just horrible.
I know.
For anybody who's not familiar with it. I promise not to take up too much of your time this afternoon, but I did want to ask, after working with this for the last many months, and as you're starting to roll this out, do you have any words of advice for other communities who are considering it?
Sure. If you're a community member, find the right person to talk to, and it might not be obvious. So find the right person in your municipality or your government. If you are a government employee, it's not as difficult as it seems. They give you quite a bit of time to meet the qualifications. And again, you see, once you are looking, you'll see opportunities everywhere. So it's just not as difficult a lift as you might initially see looking at the qualifications.
Is it a big investment?
No, it's not. It takes some of our time for sure, but it's habitat planning time that we do anyway. And we should be looking for ways to preserve pollinator habitat or recreate or restore anyway as part of our habitat planning. So basically our expense is the annual fee and maybe a little bit of administrative time.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, not a heavy lift, as you said.
No.
Yeah, it's work that you're mostly doing anyways.
Yeah, and it gets you in touch with a lot of resources that you might not otherwise have, and another community or another group of people who are passionate about something, which is never a bad thing.
Sounds like a wonderful program and a wonderful way to spend some time.
Yes.
And to get a great sign to boot.
Yep, get a sign and everybody's happy, including the bees. Happy bees are good.
There, we like that. Well, thank you very much, Amy, for taking time this afternoon talking with us at Beekeeping Today podcast, and I look forward to seeing that sign.
You're welcome. I'll get it up there.
Bee City, USA. Hey, I feel special now. Olympia is on the map.
Yeah, you should. That's a pretty cool thing. This was a fun program to do. Molly had lots of information, good information, and I'm thinking you can even have an ordinance against keeping bees and be a bee city. So they're pretty all inclusive.
Yeah, they are. I know. I'm not to get down into political muck, but I know the Xerces Society. Some people have a problem with them because there's the whole natives pollinator versus non-native pollinator, and honeybee is a non-native, and somehow people got Xerces mixed up in that, but they do a lot of work that's really good for the honeybee, and I think folks should lean on them as a valuable resource going forward, and this Bee City USA and Bee Campus is two examples of the great work that they do promoting pollinators.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And they seem to do a good job, be good at what they were doing. There's one thing we didn't talk about, and very briefly, if you're going to let your lawn go in May, we talked about the no-mow May, or whenever it is that you're going to do it, whatever month works for you. A good trick to do is to mow maybe a 2-mower width around the edge of your lawn. Let the middle grow up, but keep the edge clean and neat, and you'd be surprised how many people don't care then because the edge looks neat. So
interesting.
I found that, and it makes perfect sense. You look at it, he's got a garden, he's got a flower garden in there, but he is mowing. He isn't just ignoring all of this. So
there's a very nice yard as you drive into Olympia. And there's the Capitol, and you drive down the hill. Just before you get to the edge of the hill where you drive down past the Capitol, there's a house that is always just chock full of native plants and pollinators. It's never mowed, but it looks really nice. And I think that if you, they show it, that demonstrates to me that if you approach it as a natural yard, as opposed to just letting it go to weed and look horrible, you can have a no-mow yard that looks nice in a city setting. Does that make sense?
Honeybees, yes, it does. And honeybees will enjoy it just as much as all the rest of the native pollinators out there.
Yeah. And the bumblebees and the hummingbirds, and it's a great thing to do. It was really fun having Molly on the show today.
It was. So thank you, Molly.
All right, well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Before we go, I want to encourage our listeners to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, wherever you download and stream the show. Your vote helps other beekeepers find us quicker. Even better, write a review and let other beekeepers looking for a new podcast know what you like. You can get there directly from our website by clicking on reviews along the top of any web page. As always, we thank Bee Culture, the magazine for American beekeeping, for their continued support of Beekeeping Today podcast. We want to thank our regular episode sponsor, Global Patties. Check them out at www.globalpatties.com. We also want to thank Strong Microbials for their support of the podcast. Check out their full probiotic line at www.strongmicrobials.com. And we want to thank Better Bee for joining us as a supporter. Check out all of their great beekeeping supplies at www.betterbee.com. And finally, and most importantly, we want to thank you, the Beekeeping Today podcast listener, for joining us on this show. Feel free to send us questions and comments at questions@beekeepingtodaypodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you, and you may even get your question answered on air. Anything else you want to mention, Kim?
No, I was going to bring that up. Questions. Send in your questions, and if, we'll get back to you right away with the answer, but then we probably will read it on air so everybody gets, because if you've got a question, I'm guessing a whole bunch of other people got the same question. So maybe we can, keep a lot of people happy.
There you go. Thanks a lot. Send them in. Take care, everybody.